You know, I had actually planned to come back to Seattle. I had been requesting a transfer back to Seattle because I wanted to be back with my family and back with my friends here. And I was actually scheduled to come back to Seattle in 81, 82. But because of the murders happened, I was transferred back immediately to help head up the Committee for Justice. So I worked full-time for the Committee for Justice for until probably about 1983, sometimes with pay and sometimes not. I lived here at my mother's house, and you know, they were 100% supportive. You know, I usually spent 10 to 15 hours working on the Committee for Justice work. You know, I traveled nationally as well as did the work here locally. In 1982, we formed the National Committee for Justice, and I became the national co-chair for the Committee for Justice with another woman on the East Coast, Therese Rodriguez. And we opened up a national office in Washington, D.C. to help us do work on the East Coast, but also do some lobbying work around the murders and intersecting it with our Philippine work, lobbying work around the Philippines. But, you know, the Committee for Justice really never had a lot of money. So I worked the majority of time without any pay. And then finally, in 1982-83, the work around the Committee for Justice began to take its path around the civil suit. Civil suit was filed in, I think, in the fall of 1982. And because of the nature of legal work, it took a long time, a lot of hearings, and then we had no money. I was forced to go to work in 1983. And that's when I started to work at camp and working under Larry Gossett in the minor home repair program as an assistant there. And I remember making $4.50 an hour and worked about 15 to 20 hours a week. So obviously that was very minimal wage. And that's why it also necessitated, if you're going to do political work and only work part-time, you live in housing collectives. And that's when I moved into a housing collective with other people in the KDP. So I continued to do Committee for Justice work, but because of the nature of that work, I really moved more into doing Philippine work. And whenever there would be periods of time when we could do work around the Committee for Justice in the realm of the Philippine work, then, you know, I would do that work as well as with Therese Rodriguez if there was opportunities to do some lobbying work. And continued to do Philippine work until the overthrow of the dictatorship in '86. But along the way, as I've said before, we didn't just silo ourselves into one arena of work. You always took up many other areas of work, and so along the way, I think it was in '84 when Jesse Jackson first ran. Started getting involved in the Washington State Rainbow Coalition and other issues that came along the way, and then in 1989, that's when we were able finally to bring the legal case for the Committee for Justice work to a head, and that civil suit actually went to trial then. I continued the Committee for Justice work a year or two after that. We still had the Barroso trial. Barroso was finally charged with the murder of Silme and Jean after the civil suit was won, and I think it was a year later in 1990, Barroso was brought to trial and found guilty. And then for another year or two after that, we pursued trying to get the money from the Marcoses and the other people that were liable in the civil suit. And I think we finally closed the Committee for Justice work about 1982. No, 1992, right? 1992. And and that was about the same time as when I actually got married in 1990, and then had 2 children within about 3 or 4 years. And so from that period, after the civil suit was and the Committee for Justice closed itself down, I pretty much spent a few years kind of personally taking care of myself. I actually went on a few years of hiatus from speaking, and I didn't do any kind of public speaking, and spent a little while with my kids trying to do some internal thinking. I actually think I was kind of burned out, and still did some work, but was kind of burned out and spent time raising my kids.